Mystery, high adventure, strange tales, and stranger creatures. If you've been looking to recapture that sense of adventure you knew as a child when you buried your nose in some swashbuckling tale or another, then look no further. Let us transport you back to the time of the Arabian Nights, with the Fantastic Four as your tour guides. Presented here are 4 brand new, as yet untold voyages of Sinbad the Sailor, with a little help from his pals in the Marvel Universe. Or at least, that's what the description on the back of today's graphic novel says. And honestly, that sounds pretty good to me. Put on your life vest, take some Dramamine, and prepare for adventure on the high seas. Because my name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown, episode 12.28, The Fantastic Fourth Voyage of Sinbad. Written by Chris Claremont, penciled by Pascual Ferry, inked by Scott Hanna, and colored by Liquid Studios, the fourth voyage opens... where else would this open? In New York City. It's a quiet, dark night, but it's also one filled with fog. Meteorologists have no explanation for this fog, but it is as thick as sheep's wool. Airports are closed. Traffic has been ground to a halt. Even pedestrians are struggling to navigate the city. In the harbor, the Coast Guard has issued an anchor-in-place order for all of the boats in said harbor. It is an eerie, strange night. One perfect for magic. A Drummond, which is a sailboat of Arabian design, slices through the water and fog with unerring purpose. I'll give you one guess where it's headed. But that doesn't mean everything is bad. Inside of Pier 4, the Fantastic Four are wearing big smiles, because after so long, the kids are coming home. Franklin, Valeria, Puppy, and Alison step through nothing, exiting from Haven to Pier 4. Franklin rushes to his mother's arms, while Puppy heads for Johnny Storm, who holds a bone out for him. Reed comments that Franklin has grown so much, but these are the kind eyes of a father. Franklin looks the same size as when we last saw him. He is still a kid. Alison comes last, carrying suitcases. Ben Grimm hangs back from this reunion, though. He greets Valeria, but something is clearly bothering him. Alison asks if he is okay, and naturally Ben says that he's fine. He volunteers to carry their bags, eager for the distraction. As the household sits down for a pizza dinner, Ben remains distant. The chatter, laughter, and chaos of the reunion remind him of his own childhood and pleasant memories. He always thought that he would settle down one day, get married, have some kids, pass along the joy and laughter of his life to his family. But then he got zapped by cosmic rays, became the Thing, and those dreams vanished. Like fog at dawn. Ben retreats to his room after dinner. He thought about maybe seeing his friends outside of the Fantastic Four, but the fog has made finding the subway near impossible. So instead he looks at his movies for something to watch, but nothing calls to him. He scans his bookshelf, maybe he'll read something, but again, nothing's really doing it. Frustrated at his sense of restlessness, Ben finally just goes to bed. Maybe there he can find some peace. The Drummond from earlier slides to a stop alongside the wharf of Pier 4. The fog moves with it, and it seeps into the pier. Like it was alive, the fog gathers up dust from the floor, condensation from the water pipes, embers from the living room fireplace, and a small part of the air itself. The fog grows in size and shape, taking on 4 vaguely humanoid forms, and then they separate to their targets. The elemental avatar for Earth looms over Ben's reclining form, but Ben's fist smashes through it as he snaps awake. Complaining about missing his beauty sleep, Ben prepares to fight some more, and alarms go up through the pier. This wakes the others, and they each fight their own avatar. Ben's enemy quickly reforms from its shattered pieces, and the team realizes that their enemies are target-specific, hitting harder than their human counterpart. So, the Fantastic Four switch their opponents, trap or crush their avatars, and then they just fade away, back to their material components. The four only have a moment to catch their breath before they hear the kids screaming. They rush to another room, where Franklin, Valeria, Puppy, and Alessandre, now in her Caledonia form, are battling a Hydra. Like a real-live, 7-headed, green-skinned Hydra. No one's powers are terribly effective against it, but they don't have to be. Even more fog spills into the room, and this time it coalesces into a single person. His skin is a bright blue, while purple clothes cover his slightly portly stomach. A purple turban with a red jewel set at the forehead tops his head, and a matching cloth covers his mouth and nose. "You supposed to be the bad guy?" Ben asks. The man announces that he is Jihad, and they will bow before him. The Fantastic Four naturally don't think that they'll do so. They strike as one, but Jihad is unfazed by their attacks. He smiles beneath his mask, leans forward, and tendrils of fog creep up behind the family. They strike the Fantastic Four and their extended family, and then they all black out. The next thing they know, Reed and Sue wake up in bed, amazed by the strange dream that they just shared. But they aren't in their bed, and that fight wasn't a dream. They're inside of the Drummond, dressed in new clothes and out at sea. When they get to the deck, they find the rest of their family, and Ben points out that they have been shanghaied. Reed says that this Jihad was able to enter their home, prepare warriors that were designed to fight them, and manage to counter all of their powers. And now this. What exactly does Jihad want with them? The group explores the ship looking for answers. They find that there is no one else on board, but they are provisioned for a long voyage, and they are equipped with navigational charts. They're written in Arabic, Johnny points out, but don't worry. Valeria says that she can translate it. You can hear Johnny's eyes roll. Turns out the ship that they're on belongs to Sinbad the sailor. Yes, the man of myth, and they have been tasked with a quest. They must recover 4 objects: the all-seeing eye with which to behold all, the hand with which to grasp it, the crystal cask to contain it all, and the mallet of destiny with which to release your heart's desire. Naturally, if Jihad wants those objects, they'll have to assume that it is for a nefarious purpose. For now, though, they'll just have to play along until they can do something about it. Reed moves to the helm, because of course he gets to be the captain, and Sue joins him. He tells Sue that Ben loves this kind of story. He made Reed watch every Sinbad movie he could when they were in college, and he just never saw the appeal. Sue teases him about this, asking what's not to love. Sinister villains, fearsome monsters, adventure, harem girls? At this she holds up a rope and shakes her hips a little bit. Reed smiles back at his wife. You know, he just never saw the appeal. But he is excited for this adventure, if he's being honest. Their very own voyage. He moves to Sue and wraps her in his arms. So, is she supposed to be a captive princess? Or a sinister seductress? Or maybe she's a harem girl? Sue continues to make fun of him. She suggests that he use the scientific method. You know, trial and error to find out which. On the prow of the ship, Ben sighs in pleasure. Sounds like the couple are feeling a bit frisky. And good for them. Things have been so rough lately, they deserve some happiness. But strangely, Ben feels kind of at home here. Taking in a breath of sea air, Ben promises Sinbad that they'll do him proud, wherever he is. Beneath his feet, the figurehead of the boat, a male with a goatee and a turban, sheds a single tear. Gee, I wonder where Sinbad is. At this point, I hope you're all familiar enough with Claremont's writing style to recognize this kind of opening. He establishes the cast, has them do an easy-level fight to kind of shake things up and maybe draw you more into the book, and then he shoves them into the actual story. While Reed would argue that Jihad's opening attack was to establish how dangerous he is, I would argue that it's kind of pointless. As I've covered before on this podcast, magic really has loose rules in the Marvel Universe, and Claremont has been my biggest offender of breaking those rules. Jihad has been able to summon enough fog to drown New York City, sneak into Pier 4, create elemental avatars and a Hydra, and then he just kidnaps the Fantastic Four into a myth! He clearly has some super duper powers that the Fantastic Four just can't defend against. So why does he attack them at all? Why wouldn't he just let them sleep, magically kidnap them, and then they could all just wake up in bed on the boat? This would enhance the mystery of how they got into this situation and keep the team on their back foot so they would be off balance this whole adventure. Plus, it would have saved us like 9 pages of story, allowing other moments later on in the book to breathe or maybe expand more in order to enhance their story elements. The character work here is simple, but it is also effective. Reed and Sue are happy to have their kids back, and Ben is sullen because of it. Not because he begrudges them their happiness, but because he doesn't have that. I'll admit that I'm not a very big fan of mopey woe-is-me Ben Grimm in general, as he has had 60 publication years to come to terms with his status as the Thing. Ben is mature, though, and so he seeks a way to lift his mood, his movies and his books, but they do him no good. That said, when Valeria finds out that they are sailing Sinbad's boat, Ben is pumped. He's laying out on the deck, he's got his hands beneath his head, he's smiling big. This is the kind of adventure that he loves, the kind of story that he grew up on, and he is relishing the moment. That's pretty good character work, and Claremont is clearly setting up a journey that will settle Ben's concerns, so it isn't a bad place for the story to start at. Even if I don't like this opening, I know that the story will address it, and that's fine. That said, I am annoyed that Allison doesn't greet or even look at Johnny upon her return. Even Claremont seems to have given up on her story at this point, and that just bums me out. She has no reason to be here anymore. Just write her out of the book already. We've already abandoned Alyssa Moyne Bounty. Let's just chuck another woman out of the book. Pascual Ferry and Scott Hanna are the art team for this book's line work, and they pair well together. Ferry has always been a very organic-feeling artist to me. He likes rounded shapes and sharp details. He also tends to have a cleaner line for his figures, like he likes to work in shapes. So Allison's hair has little detail. It's just a pointy block of hair on her head, but then if you look at the shadows that he puts on Reed and Sue's costumes, they're fairly realistic. He isn't working in contrasts like LaRocca did in the 2001 annual. The shadows and light don't really complement each other at all, but it does keep the page interesting. Ferry excels at drawing unnatural, strange monsters as well, and the Hydra here is no exception. It gets a single page to itself, and I love it. It has these tiny, beady eyes that make it look just a little bit dopey, and like I said, I dig it. It's really fun looking. The tonal shift from the fog-laden New York City to the high seas is fairly smooth in story and in line work, a change that is highlighted by Liquid's color work. The opening of the book is all darker shades of purple, blue, gray, and black. It's night. Ben's mood is sour, and danger seems to lurk in every shadow. But once we're on the Drummond, it's warmer browns, oranges, and blue skies with big, fluffy white clouds. This isn't threatening anymore. It's fun, it's an adventure, and it feels like it, complete with a quest! As a big fan of fantasy stories, this is right up my alley. I love this kind of setup. The first voyage takes the Fantastic Four to a beautiful crystal palace in the sky, hovering over the seas. It does move, and Reed notices that it is faster in the air than they are in the water. They have to get the crystal cask now, because they may not get another chance at it. Johnny flies up, eager to be the hero here. But the crystals of the palace act like a lens, amplifying his own light and blinding him. He can't get the cask. Reed puts on some polarized glasses, and he stretches into the city. But now the crystals reflect his image so much that it causes him to get lost. Ben offers trying to get it, but Reed suspects that his mass would shatter the very ground, and he would probably get lost just like Reed did. No, this adventure is up to Sue. She turns invisible, and she just walks up to the cask, enjoying the stroll. 1 artifact down, 3 to go. This was nice. This was a cute way to explore the team and their powers in this particular setting. It highlights their powers and skills, and it's fast, which I like the most. No sense wasting time here, am I right? We got 4 adventures to go on, plus whatever else is happening, so let's keep moving. The second voyage opens on an island. The Fantastic Four are playing living chess, with Reed as the player, and them as the pieces. Sue, it seems, is the queen, but she is held in a cage, I'm assuming as a hostage or a wager? The Caliph who faces Reed has put up a pair of gauntlets. These are the hands with which to grab all. He is confident of his victory, but Reed wins. No one's surprised here. I'd like it if this particular voyage got a little bit more time, maybe playing with the trust that the team clearly has to place in Reed, especially given that this is set after the whole Reed was Dr. Doom thing that we just went through. This whole story is only 2 pages, and sure it works, but it isn't really anything notable at all. Voyage 3 opens in a stone temple. The Human Torch flies towards the camera, but he's different. His head stretches backwards to a curled downward point. His feet have split into 2 large toes, and fiery wings sprout from his back. Johnny shouts to Reed that he's back, that he finished the loop around the temple like he asked, but Iblis got him somewhere along the flight. Her gaze appears to turn people first into demons and then second into stone statues, and Johnny is horrified to find that Sue and Reed have transformed already. They stand still, now green-skinned with hooves, a tail, and horns. A woman steps from the shadows, and this is Iblis. Like those she's transformed, Iblis has hooved feet and a tail, horns, and, this is a unique feature to her, tiger stripes on her orange-brown skin. Cloth covers her torso and waist, which is cinched with a belt, from which hangs the Mallet of Destiny. She is the mother of all demons and jinn, and she declares that she cannot lose. Ben disagrees. He punches a pillar that was supporting the ceiling, and it starts to drop. Iblis is confused by this strategy. Destroying the temple won't accomplish anything, save for crushing his friends. As the ceiling falls, Ben catches it on his back, though, not even breaking a sweat. Iblis walks up to him and drapes her arms around his neck. Now that he's trapped, all she has to do is wait. Eventually, he'll open his eyes, and then she'll have him, too. Shifting his weight, Ben pushes the ceiling back up, and sunlight pours into the temple. This was Reed's plan all along. He had Johnny fly around the temple to fuse the stone walls to glass. Then, once they're shattered, the sunlight could finish Iblis off. Cursing Ben, but calling him Sinbad, Iblis turns into stone herself. The rest of the Fantastic Four return to normal, and they claim the mallet. This story works a lot better for me. Ferry's demon forms look so cool. I like Iblis's cocky attitude. I like Reed's overall plan, although I don't really feel like the artwork sells it. And what's more, I like the faith that the team had in each other to pull this mission off. This is a good one. Voyage 4 opens on the sea again. Johnny remarks to Alison that he could really find his way into enjoying this kind of life. Tons of adventure and maybe some time for romance? Now you want to try and bring the ship back into Port Claremont? Well, I ain't having it. This ship hasn't gone anywhere. It is too little, too late. I am sick of it. Be gone! Anyway, a massive stone is suddenly dropped into the waters near the ship. Valeria goes overboard, but Reed saves her, and the ship's occupants look to the sky. There they find a gigantic rook. That's R-U-K-H, and it is big. Like, this thing could just nab the ship and take the whole thing if it wanted to. A single eye rests above a hooked beak, and 2 more boulders are held in its claws, ready to drop. The Human Torch tries to scare it off with a flame burst. The sudden pain makes the rook drop another stone, though, and this time it is coming down on the ship. Valeria and Sue quickly throw up their force fields, protecting them from the stone. but it does shove them underwater, and then they pop back up like a beach ball shoved under the water. Johnny, still flying in the air, is relieved that his sister is okay, but then the rook's claw snaps shut on him. The blow hits his head, knocking him out, and the rook flies off. The Fantastic Four follow, weaving their way through a twisted maze of stone and shipwrecks. Ben remarks that the rook appears to have nested on the very island that they're headed towards, where they should find the all-seeing eye. Valeria offers to team with Caldonia in order to retrieve Uncle Johnny, but Reed shuts that down. It is too dangerous and they're already down one member. They stay with the ship where it's safe. On the island, a towering fortress of stone reaches into the sky. Several floating stones act as a path to it, and Ben, Reed, and Sue head inside. Once inside, they find an 8-armed statue of a woman, each pair of arms in a different position. Ben remarks that the World Trade Center, RIP, wouldn't even reach her armpit. That is how big this statue is. In her lap is the rook's nest, where 3 babies screech for food. So they either need to get the eye or save Johnny. The team chooses to get the eye, and really? I've been harping a lot on the team trusting each of its members in these adventures, and on the one part, this does feel kind of callous and cold of them. They're basically leaving Johnny to potentially be eaten. But it is important to remember that Johnny has been an adventurer for decades, and he can handle himself when in the field. Getting the eye will finish this mission and maybe resolve whatever purpose they have in being here, and they are trusting Johnny to be able to stay alive long enough for them to do it. So on the one hand, this feels very cold, but on the other hand, this feels like a strong example of the trust and teamwork that these people place in each other. So, Sue turns the 3 of them invisible, Reed stretches up the statue, and Ben uses Reed as a climbing rope to ascend it with Sue on his back. I flippin' love this bit. Claremont's got some of the weirdest power combinations I've ever seen the Fantastic Four do, and they don't do them nearly often enough, but man, when they do them, I like them. As they climb, they pause at the nest, where they see a large, green-skinned creature in the act of being lowered down towards the babies by the mother. Sue argues that this creature is sentient, as it has clothes on, and so they should save it. Ben says that they shouldn't, because they need to finish the job. And come on, Sue, you just left your brother in the clutches of the rooks. Why should we save this rando and not your brother? Sue argues that their powers give them a responsibility to help people who need it, and they have to interfere. Before she can, though, Johnny sets the nest on fire. The mother rook starts to grab babies in order to save them. With the rook gone, the Fantastic Four get the green guy down, they acquire the all-seeing eye, and book it back to the ship. Along the way, Johnny explains that he didn't set the nest on fire. His goal wasn't to ruin the life of these rooks. He set some of their shed feathers on fire in order to smoke them out. He got the idea from a story from Ben, actually, who has been telling the family the stories of Sinbad every night. When they return to the ship, they find it possessed by the magics of Jihad, who has turned Alisande and the kids into wooden statues. He stands on the beach, easily 25 feet tall. He is less dressed than the last time, wearing only a wrap over his crotch and waist. Swirling black designs wrap around his body as tattoos, as does some crackling blue energy, his magics. If they ever wish to have their kids back, then they'll do exactly as he says. He's impressed by their skills. Many heroes have tried these quests before, and all of them have failed. But, in succeeding, they have also failed. Jihad has taken their treasures, their family, as well as those artifacts stored on the boat. Time for them to turn over the all-seeing eye. Seeing no other choice in the matter, Reed stretches his hands and the eye out, and in that moment Ben shouts for Susie to toss him! Jihad begins to vanish, but Ben snatches one wooden figure from the man, the ship's figurehead. He splashes into the ocean water, and Sue yells at him. Why did he save the figurehead and not her kids? He's their godparent, for heaven's sakes. Ben stands up, dripping wet, and so does Sinbad. The hero then explains why the Fantastic Four are caught up in all of this. Jihad knows of Sinbad's exploits, so he kidnapped his daughter, Dione, to force Sinbad into collecting the artifacts. But Sinbad knew that he couldn't accomplish the task, and so he visited the Oracle. The Oracle then saw through the veil between their worlds, and told him that the Fantastic Four would be the only ones who could accomplish this task. So, he talked Jihad into abducting the Fantastic Four, got turned into the figurehead, and boom, there you go. Sinbad's own minor sorcery skills allowed him to influence Ben just now in order to free him. Alone, Sinbad knows that he couldn't defeat Jihad, but together, they might just have a chance. Ben then points out that they are missing one thing: a ride. The mother rook suddenly lands nearby in the surf, and voila! There is their ride. Reed tells Sue to lasso the rook and ride it like a horse. She does so, and she is thrilled at the opportunity to do it. The scene with the mother rook is perhaps the strangest voyage in this book. Not because the voyage is inherently strange itself, but what Claremont chooses to do with it is strange. So far, these adventures have been fast, fun, and free of consequences or responsibility. But right smack dab in the middle of the rook scene, we have the Green Giant to rescue. Now, I do like the overall lesson here, that if you can save/help someone, then you should. That is a Claremont and, really, honestly, a Marvel storytelling staple. But it also really stops the story's momentum, and it just kills the fun mood that we have had the whole time. But it really stops the story's momentum and kills the fun mood that we've had so far. Forcing the Fantastic Four, and through them, us, the audience, to choose between getting the artifact or a living being is kinda messed up when everything else that we've experienced so far has been pretty lighthearted. And this bit doesn't tell us anything new about the Fantastic Four, the world that they're in, nor does it further the narrative. So as far as I'm concerned, this story element is totally pointless. I like the team trusting in Johnny's skills to rescue himself. I like the way that they work together to climb the statue. I like that Johnny's solution comes from Ben's story about Sinbad, who inspired this whole adventure to begin with. That stuff is cute, and it works well with the story. But the rest of it is useless. And it's doubly useless because we had a moment where the team considered rescuing Johnny and chose not to, but now they choose to rescue the green guy. Maybe they should have gone to rescue Johnny and then realized they were in over their heads when they find the Green Giant there, and now they need to rescue him too. I'm not sure what that would have added to the story, but at least could have simplified the overall narrative and made it about getting Johnny, and then in saving Johnny they would scare off the rook and they were able to get the eye. Speaking of Sinbad, he has been added to the cast now, and we have learned what set all of this whole schlemagle into motion. The background elements of his story work fine, although holy hell was that an exposition dump. I can't help but wonder if there was a better way to introduce Sinbad and explain the story, though. What I don't like here is the rook returning just as the team needs a ride. Even Sinbad makes a joke about this amazing bit of luck providing transport, and just... ugh. This is a deus ex machina if I've ever seen one, and it is a pointless one too, as Puppy is still with the team, and he can
No swearing.
teleport. And don't try to tell me that he can't teleport to somewhere that he hasn't been, or that he needs to see his destination or some other plot hole bullshit, because he has teleported to Hades before, and I don't think this dog has been to Hades before that. Plus, he's going to teleport later on in the issue, so don't tell me that for whatever reason he can't do it. This is just a plot hole, and there's no reason why Claremont didn't take advantage of that situation. This whole scene honestly would have played better if the rook had returned in order to attack Johnny, holding a grudge for his affronts, and the Fantastic Four maybe just want to beat it up, but then it would be Sinbad who suggests that they ride it, and he pitches how. Maybe he even does some swashbuckling moves to get on it first, showing them that it's possible. Otherwise, he doesn't add anything here. He doesn't really have a reason to be here. He's just another body. He is the one who is most familiar with this world and its strange beasts, so he should be the one taking the lead. He even states that together they can stop Jihad. But right now, I am not seeing a use for you, Sinbad, my man. The story moves to a bustling metropolis, unnamed in our story. Our narration indicates that this city has had many names on many worlds, but it has always been a center of culture. It is a nice-looking fantasy city over a bay with a towering citadel rising above it. Jihad has used his magics to conquer this city and break its peoples. Inside of that citadel, Jihad gestures his hand through the air, swirling the 4 artifacts around. Long-limbed monkeys, who are dressed in caps and vests, move the wooden figures of the fantastic extras around the Pit of Souls, capitalized, as ordered. Their life forces will power the spell, channeled through the artifacts, which will then cause this world and the Marvel Earth to merge, and Jihad will rule them both. Not a terribly interesting goal for a bad guy, but it works, I guess. Jihad then crosses his legs and floats in the air. He holds the all-seeing eye before him so he can see everything. He puts on the gloves so that he can grasp his prize. He then places a piece of his soul into the crystal cask so that it might bind him to the world and the world to him. Next, he draws the souls from the fantastic extras, adding them to the cask in order to bridge their 2 worlds. Filled with their power, the spell quickly reaches its climax. Jihad grasps the Mallet of Destiny, planning to shatter the cask, claim that power, and rule 2 realms. But Sue cries out, "Never!" as Puppy teleports her in from the silently approaching Rook. She quickly wraps the artifacts in invisible force fields, buying time until the rest of the team can arrive. The Rook tears the roof off of the Citadel, allowing Ben and Sinbad to handle the monkey goons. The team gets into position to face Jihad, using Sue's force fields to cut off his oxygen. Reed then uses his body as an elastic band to launch Ben at him. The double-fisted blow bowls Jihad over, buying Sinbad a moment to grab the all-seeing eye. The villain recovers quickly, reaching out for Sinbad and his prize, but a flame blast of the arm causes him to reel back. Jihad sucks the remaining fire in and then spits them back out, roasting Ben. The rest of the team is safe inside of Sue's force field. And thankfully, due to his stone skin, Ben is unharmed. Jihad is flabbergasted by this. He should be dead. Ben gets up, cracks his knuckles, and lands an uppercut that sends Jihad through the freaking roof. While he's gone, Sinbad guides the Fantastic Four in undoing Jihad's spell. Rather than using the souls of the prisoners to capture a world, they will release them back. Jihad recovers, and he does approach the Citadel in an attempt to stop them, but he's just too slow. They manage to pull it off, and Ben smashes the cask, letting the souls return to Franklin, Valeria, Alisande, and Dione. They return to flesh and blood. Jihad is banished from the world of mortals, and all is set right. Joined now by Dione, Sinbad sails the family back through the fogs to New York City. Ben compliments Sinbad on how great his family is, and Sinbad explains how he met Dione's mother. Sinbad was under a curse at the time, one that made him hideous to mortal men, but her mother fell in love with Sinbad's soul, despite his appearance. As they pull up to the pier, Sinbad adds that they are going to arrive at the same time that they left, because magic. As the others depart the boat, Sinbad holds Ben back for a second. They are as similar as brothers, a world apart, yes, but they have the same kind of soul. Sinbad found his true love. He's sure that Ben will too, eventually. Dione then offers Ben a talisman. Sinbad said that it led him to her mother, so perhaps it can lead Ben to his love. Until then, she tells him to think of them, meaning Sinbad and Dione, as his family. Ben steps off the boat. He'll keep the talisman as a memory of this adventure, sure, but, well, he's got a family. Maybe they ain't blood, but they're more than a man could wish for. The end. Which really isn't a bad ending. The Fantastic Four really do need Sinbad to guide them through undoing Jihad's work, while Sinbad needed them to handle Jihad physically. There was good action, some clever interaction between the characters, and overall a nice, heartwarming ending. Overall, I have to admit, I dig this. It is a super light story. It is light on story details, character work, consequences. Honestly, it's light on everything save the word count. But not every story is about destroying reality and then picking up the pieces. This is a story about having some fun, trusting those you love, and finding your true family. And I think that it did all of those things well. The characters all sound right, although the Sinbad in my head definitely sounds like Brad Pitt's Sinbad from the DreamWorks animated movie. This isn't a flaw of this particular book, but it does feel weird as Claremont's take on Sinbad is much more formal and verbose. Ferry's artwork is pretty, his pages flow well, and his monsters look great. Jihad becomes less human during his final confrontation, kind of symbolizing how his magic is a part of him, and that looked really cool. Liquid's colors are bright throughout, definitely capturing the idea that this is a sea adventure with some kind of low stakes. It's just meant to be fun. As good as all of this was, though, it could have been better. The main emotional throughline for this story is Ben Grimm and his lack of a family. The obvious solution here is that the Fantastic Four are Ben's family. He just needs to be reminded of that. Claremont then places Ben in a situation where he is the most comfortable, in the world of Sinbad, whose stories Ben devoured and was inspired by, which you'd think would make him the leading man on these adventures. But no, Reed tends to be the brains throughout. In fact, the only moment when Ben's knowledge of Sinbad actually comes in handy is when Johnny lights the rook feathers on fire. And that's it. Rather than using this setup as a way for Ben to actually be a stand-in for Sinbad, and as such be responsible for the fate of his adopted family due to his knowledge of the stories, Claremont keeps Ben in a supporting role. Reed proposes the solution to the Crystal Palace, Reed defeats the Caliph in chess, Reed proposes the plan to defeat Iblis, and Sue guilts everyone about not saving a green dude who Ben thought they should let die. Ben is only important to the Iblis story, and even then, it's only his brute strength that wins the day, not his kind heart or his love for his family. To be fair, most of those stories are reliant on the Fantastic Four trusting each other implicitly, like a family. So it's not like Claremont isn't referencing the idea that these people trust and love one another. Ben has utter faith in Reed's plan during the Iblis adventure, to the point that he just closes his eyes and does what he's been told, even when faced with the mother of demons. Literally. I'm also kind of annoyed that the kids are even in this story because they aren't important at all, save as hostages, and that background role is really kind of insulting to me. According to Alisande, she has faced dangers untold in her home reality, but she never gets a chance to show her skills here at all. Franklin can alter reality, and to be fair, Jihad does mention that the kids' souls teem with power once he captures them, but Franklin doesn't do anything to help here. Valeria's first few appearances were nothing but her disobeying orders and rushing into dangerous situations. So the idea that she's just this quiet Jimmer wallflower who does whatever Reed tells her to do is extremely frustrating. One of Valeria's most endearing qualities was the fact that she did what she thought was right, even if it meant disobeying her elders. And she does nothing here. And if that was going to be the case, then why not have Jihad kidnap them at the start of the story? Demonstrate how much the kids mean to Ben by putting them in danger right at the start of this adventure, and Ben is the only one who understands this world well enough to navigate it in order to save them. I would also like to remind the audience that Ben has spent time on the high seas before. Back in Fantastic Four Volume 1, Issue 5, Dr. Doom sent the team back in time to the golden age of piracy, and Ben took on the identity of Blackbeard. The idea was that the fake beard would hide his face, while the bulky clothes hid the rest of him, and he kind of enjoyed the adventure there too. So Ben is no stranger to sailing the world or swashing buckles me hearties yo-ho. So having him take on more of a leading role in this story wouldn't have felt that out of place. I scanned through the Wikipedia page for Sinbad to see if Claremont was drawing from specific stories as inspiration for this book, so maybe he couldn't change some story elements or he was forced into some kind of story structure. But I honestly didn't see a lot of dots connecting. The idea of a massive bird that drops stones does appear to be consistent, although in the original stories it is called a roc, R-O-C, not rook, R-U-K-H. But that's such a small thing that I don't really care that it's different. Iblis is a figure in the Quran, Islamism, and Sufism, but everything that I could find about it referred to it as a male, and it was either a fallen angel or a jinn, definitely not a female mother of demons and jinn. When she refers to Ben as Sinbad in that voyage, though, she is referring to the time when Sinbad was cursed, which Sinbad himself references towards the end of the issue, but I can find no story where Sinbad suffers under such a curse. From what I could find, Dione only appears in the 1977 movie Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, where she is the daughter of another character and has no relation to Sinbad at all. It's fair to point out that most Sinbad stories were, naturally, made-up stories which changed and altered with each telling. While I'd argue that most people are probably familiar with Sinbad thanks to 1001 Nights, or 1001 Arabian Nights, a collection of stories from the Middle East, which were then popularized in various books, movies, anime, and yeah, even comic books. Those later stories all pulled from the source material, but they also freely did whatever they wanted to, including throwing in dinosaurs or prehistoric monsters. Some even added in other mythological locations like Hyboria or Lemuria. Sinbad's story is a shifting, evolving narrative, so no two stories are going to be 100% alike, which you'd think would give Ben an upper hand in navigating this story as he is familiar with all of those stories, but no. As someone who is fascinated by the evolving nature of stories, which is really where a lot of my fascination with comic books come from, as they're constantly changing to reflect the times, but then still referencing things from like 80 years ago, tying Sinbad into the Fantastic Four is really neat and kind of a natural idea. The story structure of 1001 Nights is someone telling another person's stories, which was a story being told to people by people in order to entertain their audience. Those kinds of stories told around campfires or over meals or to a king needing entertainment were the comic books of their time. They're pulp stories at their heart, featuring brave adventurers rescuing beautiful women and fighting dangerous monsters or corrupt officials in order to make the world a better place. While the general themes of Sinbad and the Fantastic Four don't have much in common, the ideas that fuel them are the same. So Claremont's lack of adherence to Sinbad's continuity doesn't bother me, as all stories change over time. If anything, I applaud Claremont for using the elements that he needed to and changing everything else to support his narrative. This is what the best comic book authors do, so I find it very fitting in this story. That said, this book cost $6, 2 times the cover price of contemporary comics, for 46 pages without ads. That means that it's basically like getting 2 issues in one, which isn't a bad deal at all. Despite its lack of impact, I think that this is one of the better stories that Claremont tells, as it's self-contained, it's fun, it's got heart, and it looks good. We aren't reinventing the wheel for the next generation here, we're just having a good time, and that's okay. And I don't know about you folks, but I had a good time with this one. That exact sentiment is really the perfect summation of Claremont's run. That it's nothing special, but it isn't bad either. When I think about the Fantastic Four and its seminal creative teams, I think of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, Tom DeFalco and Paul Ryan, Jim Lee and Brandon Choi, Mark Waid and Mike Ringo, Mark Millar and Brian Hitch, J. Michael Straczynski's run, Hickman's run, even Dan Slott's modern-day run. But I never think of Claremont's. It's this strange, under-the-radar period of time, and now that I've read it all, I can totally understand why. The Fantastic Four is a book about big ideas, and Claremont's biggest ideas go nowhere. His new characters fail to impress, partially because they get so little screen time, and partially because nothing about them stands out. His interpretations of the Fantastic Four themselves are spot on, but they don't explore anything new about those characters, save for Reed Richards, and honestly, props for that. Reed can be a hard guy to write, but I do think that Claremont writes him well. LaRocca's artwork, which is most impressive in its consistency, again, during roughly a 32-issue run, there was never a fill-in issue, and LaRocca did some bonus books. His artwork works fine, but again, he does nothing to make the Fantastic Four his own. I can immediately picture the white and black costumes from Hickman and Epting's run, or the modern blue and black designs of Slott's run, or even just the beard that Reed has been sporting recently in Dan Slott's run. These small costume changes immediately make me recognize those eras. But LaRocca's artwork, while excellent, doesn't mark this run in any special way. He doesn't even design his own set of costumes for the team, he just reverts them to the costumes that Carlos Pacheco designed for the team during his run back in 1996, just before Volume 1 was cancelled. And those designs are a good look, I'm not arguing that, it's just, they're Pacheco's look, not LaRocca's. Even with this graphic novel, Ferry gives the team new adventure-inspired costumes. They've just got a slight fantasy twist to them, and it is just enough to mark them as being on a different kind of adventure. Thankfully, as I've mentioned before, Claremont's run doesn't totally fall into obscurity. Valeria Von Doom goes on to become a staple part of the Fantastic Four, with an interesting relationship as a bridge between the team and Dr. Doom, who honestly seems to care for the girl. As the one non-superpowered member of the team, save for her intellect, it's been fun to watch Valeria grow into her own person. And while I haven't read Mark Millar's time on the book, as I'm not a fan of his writing, I am glad that he brings Alyssa Moy back, because I think that there's a lot of interesting ideas one could do with her. She is, after all, an intellectual rival to Reed Richards, so you'd think that she would be up to some interesting things in her own time. And, of course, we have the lingering elements of the Reborn Earth, or Planet Doom, going on to other stories as well. There is a 3-issue miniseries that follows up on, if you can call it that, Doom's return to the Reborn Earth after Fantastic Four issue 31. It's called Doom, the Emperor Returns, and it reunites Chuck Dixon with Leonardo Manco. I don't intend to cover it as part of this collection, as it really stands as its own thing, and this is going to be our last episode regarding Fantastic Four Volume 3. But if you folks are interested in learning about it, please let me know. I could always break it down later. Either let me know in the comments, or send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. We eventually get to see Rebel from the Heroes Reborn event books appear in Thunderbolts, as well as the Young Allies and Reborn Earth itself. A good chunk of the last year of Thunderbolts is actually set on the Reborn Earth. Ricky Barnes, aka Bucky, eventually makes the move to Earth Classic, takes on the codename of Nomad, creates a new team of Young Allies, dies, and then comes back to life. And she only just came back in a Fantastic Four spin-off book, so it's cool to see her circling these concepts again. She actually meets a now teenage Franklin Richards and thanks him for making her, literally meeting her maker. In interesting news, just as I was writing these last few episodes of Fantastic Four, Marvel announced a new Heroes Reborn event. This one is going to be spinning out of Jason Aaron's current Avengers run, where the Phoenix is going to create a new reality with, quote, no more Avengers, end quote. And so a whole bunch of different characters take the Avenger spot, and new villains are created, and it just looks weird and fun. I'm not sure if I'll be able to afford picking up this new iteration of the Heroes Reborn idea, but I like that Aaron appears to be taking the name and just running with it, as opposed to continuing the Reborn Earth's story or being a slave to what came before. This event sounds really fun and a little stupid and just right up my alley, so we'll see. Which brings me to perhaps my biggest question: what's next for Breakdown? And that is a good question. I know that after the epic quest that was Claremont's run on Fantastic Four, I want to take a break from anything that is this long. So I've gathered up a handful of books that I want to talk about that are all relatively short. We're talking like 6 episodes max to break one of them down. I also want to drop some slightly different kind of episodes, so I've been writing up some weirder books with a different writing focus. They won't be the standard, here's what happened and why it happened and if it did or did not work style that I've been writing in, but I'm not quite sure what they will be. I know that the first one I want to try this on is the recent Batman 3 Jokers miniseries, and I'm in the process of writing that now. It's also been asked of me that I break down the X-Men event Inferno from the 80s, which I'm actually a big fan of, so I really want to do that. But we just finished reading a long Claremont run, and it took us over the course of a year, so I kind of want to take a break from Claremont's writing style. I will get there. It just isn't going to be immediate. I want to do a few hit and run missions before I get into another long campaign against an entrenched enemy, if you know what I'm saying. To that end, I am taking the next week off. This will allow me to take a few days to just breathe and relax and kind of gather my thoughts, but it'll also give me some time to finish my writing and recording. The joy of doing a longer book is that I can basically introduce the writer once, and I'm kind of done with that aspect of it. There isn't a lot of extra research to do. The trick, though, of doing smaller books is that I have to do a bunch of research really fast, plus the breakdowns, and that just takes time, so I want to make sure that I have that time. But the week after, we're back at it. And I don't want to come back with some paltry, schmaltry book. No. I want to come back big. I want to come back amazingly. Join me in 2 weeks for Comic Book Breakdown episode 14, where I'm going to be covering the Hellboy Omnibus 1, Seed of Destruction. That's over 300 pages of spooky comics, baby. Enjoy the break. I'll see you there. Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me, to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.